We've got some
Hey, I'm Luis.
And this is Luis.
And welcome to the Content is Profit podcast.
In here, you're going to get the insights, accountability, and drive to create consistently and increase revenue.
You'll hear from top entrepreneurs, creators, and anything and everything you need to know about content. All this while having a good time.
The goal of this podcast is simple: to entertain, educate, and turn your content into profit.
That's right, guys. Welcome back to Content is Profit. FONZI, we got you back. Sunday.
Back?
Yeah, Monday, the episode.
I've been back.
You've been back, but not to the show. I mean, on Monday, it was just me and Ben, Martech. We just did a little bit of a tease in there of what's to come. But anyways,
Interesting.
We're back from Podcast Movement in Dallas, and we're bringing with us some lessons.
Some fire.
Some fire. You have fun, Fonzie?
It was a fun event. Very fun.
Yeah.
It's always good to connect with the top minds in the space.
That's right. It was great for them. It was great for them to connect with the top minds in the space.
That was literally a joke I was going to make.
Anyways, guys, today in the production side, we are very excited because we're trying multicam today. I don't know if you've heard our story.
Well, you are very excited.
I'm very excited. I mean, in our story, the first 5 episodes that we recorded was trying to do multicam and all this stuff, and it didn't really work out. Huh?
The first 5 episodes of Bros.
Bruce and Bros, that's right. The Content's Profit.
The podcast that never was.
The podcast that never was.
Sounds like a Game of Thrones, like a Game of Thrones title. The podcast that never was.
House of Podcast. Hey.
Oh.
Hey, is that the name of the new media house that we might be planning?
House of Podcast.
House of Podcast.
Well, you just put it out there, so don't steal it if you're listening to this.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, Fonzie, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about the top lessons that we learned in podcast movement. 2022.
That's a boring side of the headline. What's the exciting part of the headline?
I don't know. Oh, ratings and reviews don't work. Don't work.
Come on, man. You can do better. Ratings and reviews don't work.
No.
What they just crushed my belief big time on that one.
I know. That was a shocker.
Yeah, and we'll tell you in a second why. But super excited, right? Fonzie, kick us off. What are your thoughts on Podcast Movement? It was the first event that we actually attended, right? From Podcast Movement.
Yeah, first podcast event from Podcast Movement with attended. I think they only did podcast events.
We did Podfest. Shout out to Podfest. They were actually there.
Yeah, we've done Podfest and we've spoken at Podfest.
Yeah.
And it has been always amazing. But Podcast Movement did feel, it has a different vibe. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit more B2B, more business to what, centered towards business rather than Podfest, which feels is more for just like individual podcasters, if that makes sense. The events actually are pretty similar in the sense that they have multiple rooms, multiple tracks, multiple different topics, and speakers talking about at the same time. You kind of like check the schedule, decide where to go, and then go check them out, which is pretty cool. But at the same time, it has a great environment for networking. Especially, I think Podcast Movement had really good like networking capabilities and some really good businesses. Like the booth that were out there promoting, there were some pretty big time ones.
Some solid, yeah. So how these came to be, we actually thought about not going to Podcast Movement. There's different things happening in our life. There's multiple events that are coming up in the next few weeks. So, it kind of ruled out. But then our amazing network, Hotspot Podcast Network. Woo, babe, what happened? That rebel went the wrong way.
You're like the HubSpot Podcast Network.
Yeah. Katie keeps calling me. I don't know what's happening. Can you check on the window?
I think I'm parked behiand her.
Okay, well, you go real quick while I share this story with the audience. No, you good? You good?
All right, I'll be right back, team.
So how this came to be when Fonzie heads out and moves the car. Anyway, so our amazing network called and they're like, hey guys, do you want to be part of a panel for Podcast Movement? We're going to talk about community, network, and different things. And we're like, absolutely. So this happened about a week before the event happened. And so I ended up getting the tickets, right? this is maybe why I need an assist. But get the tickets, right? We get to the airport that we live in. There's not too much volume, so we normally can get there about 40 minutes. And bear with me because this story is very worth it. So when we're checking into the computers, right, they have like this lobby aspect where we come in and we check in, we put the phone in. Our names are not popping up. And we always have this issue where there's Luis, and it's always a mess up. We have to like prove that we get 2 tickets because we have the same name. It does happen. So I'm telling this story to the lady. The lady's not having it. This is about 5:30 in the morning. And she's like, you guys are late to your flight. You're going to have to reschedule. With that, I'm like, no, we don't need to reschedule. We're still on time. So anyways, we end up in another line to go to the desk. And when we get to the desk, I open my phone and I've purchased tickets for September. And this is August. So I definitely start apologizing with the lady at the front desk. She's laughing. The 20 people that we have behind are laughing. And we're like, hey, is there any way that we can actually take the next plane, which is at 8? And we have to be here. We actually speak at this event. And it was, let me tell you, it was a really, really expensive mistake. So we end up traveling. We made it on time. Please do not tell my wife that happened because she won't let me plan any other event. So anyways, we get to the event, right? And the main goal, one of the things that we really talked on, and maybe this helps you if you go to different events. In past events, we've gone where there's not really an intention, but to go and sit on the lessons, meet some people, but with a targeted intention. I don't think we've ever gone to that event except this one. And we're like, hey, there's an intention here. The intention is to build amazing relationships. Our intention is to see the people that have been on the podcast before, to connect with the people that have been on the podcast, to connect with leads. We connect with relationships that could mean something really meaningful for the business side of things. So we immediately get there and we start connecting with everybody that's at the floor. There's some people that we want to talk. We connected with amazing people like the team of David Metzler, for example. So my take on that, one of the biggest lessons is before you go to an event, make sure that you have an intention. What is it? Is it learning? Is it take one nugget of information? Is it top 3 questions that you have about your industry, top 3 questions that you have about your business? Go on and answer those. Because in the past, without that intention, we've gotten there and it can be very, very overwhelming. And what happens is when we get back, we're trying to decipher all this information, all these connections, and filter the ones that might not be a fit, whether to learn or improve, or even to do business with, and we end up exhausted. So when we came back this time, that was a big plus, and we were able to restart our week even better than after the event. So if you've ever felt like you go to an event and then you come back and you need another week of vacation, maybe this is something that you want to implement in your framework to go to the event. Anyways, FONZI is back. We had to move. I bet Katie was not happy.
I made it.
You made it. Yeah, you survived.
Your camera here has something.
It's all good. All right. So I just share a little bit of the story when we get there. But anyways, FONZI, how has your perception changed on conferences, right? What's the approach?
Can you repeat the question, please? I was making sure the camera is actually recording.
It doesn't matter if it doesn't.
Well,
it's a test.
You're trying to attend.
How's your perception? How has your perception on conferences changed a bit? I already did my take on intention.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't hear your take, but
doesn't matter.
Personally, when we first started, for me, it was a matter of like, let me just learn a lot. Let me try to soak up as much information as possible. And now that has changed to maybe just, okay, what is one thing that can help me? Just one. And then networking is the big thing. Like, it's just so rewarding to connect with people and look for opportunities. You never know who you're going to meet that could potentially, be a game changer or become a client or, partnership, whatever it is. Just be open to all the relationships that are there. People are pretty much in the same vibe. So that helps a lot because it's very easy to start conversations, connect with people. And then, of course, don't neglect, what is that one thing that you can potentially take from the event information-wise and then implement it in your business.
All right. So I love that. You're gonna have to listen to the recording to hear my take on that one.
Maybe.
But
I'm just gonna skip on that part.
anyways, what's one of your lessons that you take away from the event?
Yeah, we already talked about one lesson. You want to check it out, just go to 2 episodes below, or we can recap it. Should we recap it?
Sure.
All right, so that is the frequency, which, or good friend, now homie, JLD, John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur Fires, he said that you need to do daily podcasts, right? At least high frequency podcasting. And of course, depends on your resources, but somebody pretty influential actually asked him the question, if you were starting today, what wouldn't you do? Which I thought it was a pretty cool question. And he said, when he started, he was so early in the space, he was just doing interviews. But he said, now I wouldn't do interviews at all. I would just do solo episodes in short kind of form, right? So like, I think 10, 20 minutes is what he says, and daily. So that was pretty impressive. I still, I'm a believer of don't just because somebody that is pretty big, just say it like that is the way. I still believe that interviews have their space, their spot, specifically if you're trying to build a 6-figure platform for B2B, based on relationships and those connections that can potentially turn into clients or partnerships. Shameless plug. If you want to learn more about that, just hit us in the DM at BIZBROS. And, I think that still has a place. But now on the audience side of things, I think the shorter episodes on a daily basis are key. Yeah. And honestly, it's because we've seen the change. Like lately, we've attempted shorter episodes, right? Same frequency. And I would consider that we're pretty high frequency, 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And the shorter solo episodes grab more traction audience-wise than the guest episodes.
Yeah. I still, like, this is obviously talking about podcasting specifically, right? But like we use the show, for example, for also to create different kinds of content in other platforms. So I am a bigger fan of maybe not the 5-minute one, but maybe a 10, 15, 20-minute, which is what we've been doing. And from then we can go explore other platforms. Especially we just started testing out, and Shorts has grabbed a ton of traction. So if you're coming from the Shorts on YouTube, welcome to Content is Profit, because we've ignited, I guess, a new group of people that have been finding about the show. So that's super exciting. Again, we talk about this in our frameworks in the publishing pyramid, right? Based on your capacity and your time to produce, right? Obviously, John Lee Dumas, he's been doing this for 10 years. There's a lot of practice. My homie, Joan, he's been doing this for about 10 years, right? So he has a lot of practice, and he has a full infrastructure behind the show that allows him to, wake up on Thursdays and knock out 8 to 10 interviews, right?
That allows him to work we've actually, for this month.
Yeah. We actually asked him like, hey, how's the rest of your month? The rest of your like 22 days? What 26. Do you do? 26. Yeah. No public math, clearly. But that was really important, right? And we have, over the last 2 weeks, with one of the people that we help, they're launching a book, and we're doing 90 days of continuous episodes, their shorter version. And just today, we're looking at that data, and it's super exciting. Guess what? They've almost tripled the amount of downloads on their show. So with that small change, you can actually increase the amount of downloads on your podcast. And if you're monetizing through advertising, this is pretty interesting too, you also increase your inventory for ad placement. So you could technically charge more on that side, which is, one of the main things that John told us. It's like, hey man, you're just maximizing and creating more opportunities for your sponsors and the people that work with you. So yeah, super exciting.
That was a pretty good one.
What about Ben? We had this discussion, right? We had the panel, right? And we're talking about growing podcasts and different things. And he said something really interesting that resonated with you. What was that?
Yeah, I don't remember what was the exact question that somebody asked him, but I'm guessing it was around how to grow. And he mentioned, he's like, there's 4 different ways to grow. And taking into consideration, he has a pretty significant podcast too. He's part of the main HubSpot podcast network, or other homie, Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, by the way, if you wanna listen to a sample of his episodes, the last episode that we published was actually his interview to us, and we're talking about fail-proof B2B content. So go ahead and check it out. And yeah,
he's honestly like a master of grow. Well, I was listening to him during the dinner, and he's like a master of growing podcasts through paid media, which is really cool. But, you know, when somebody asked him, hey, what are these ways to grow your podcast? He said, like, well, it really depends on the stage that you're at, but these are mainly the four, which are viral, organic, paid, and partnership. And we're not going to dive in super deep into all this, but viral is pretty much what we talk about in a previous episode that we call topical, right?
Yeah.
Like, what is that wave that you can ride at the moment and take advantage of, and just create an episode around that is probably going to give you a spike on your podcast downloads because of the search that is happening at the moment, right? So I don't have an example right now. I don't know what's going on right now in the world.
I mean,
that could be viral.
An example of this is the episode that we did when Elon Musk was about to purchase Twitter. That's not happening anymore. So that's an example of something that was happening right there and there. And then
people were looking for those opinions, those news, and then you obviously have a higher chance of showing up in their feed and then them listening to you. So that's viral. Then we got organic, which is kind of like your evergreen content. Something I wouldn't say this is evergreen, but evergreen would be more in the terms of your pillar content. So for us, it would be maybe an episode that we did about the 6-figure platform, right? Explaining and breaking down exactly how you can use podcasting to monetize your business through relationships and offering your services on the back end. So that could be organic. Then you got paid, which obviously, I mean, it is implied in there. You are buying media, you're buying the audience. So you pretty much just pay your way to the ears of the consumer. And then the last one is partnership, which, for example, it can be what we're doing with the HubSpot Podcast Network, right? There are other podcasts in there and we're doing cross promotions. They're shouting out our podcast. If you're listening to this right now, you know that we're shouting out other podcasts at the beginning of the episode. So partnerships is actually one of the best ways to do it. Cross promotion is very high up in there for all podcasters. They love that. So, you know, lots of different ways to grow. And the cool thing is that not all of them require resource, but most of them require the resource of your time, attention, and energy, and not necessarily your money. Obviously, the money one, the paid ads, is going to help you grow faster. But at the same time, it might potentially be a little bit of a risk in there for those that might not have that much of a budget to invest. But there's ways to grow, and there's a lot of opportunity in the podcasting space.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, we're going through some work with the client earlier and their team, and we asked them, hey, can we pull out the data of the last 2 weeks on obviously this podcast, the title, the headlines, different things. And we talked about this strategy a while back in the show, but they've been putting out daily pieces of content multiple times a day with different headlines, testing messages, and out of 20 pieces of content that we reviewed, 3 really resonated. And it was funny because one of them, they were talking about Microsoft. The other one, they were talking about Jeff Bezos. And the other one was talking about sales and how to double them, right? So it was pretty interesting. And those 3 out of the micro content that came out, they are grabbing those main ideas and then they're developing full episodes to go ahead and do that. So that's something that definitely you can do, right? Let's say you don't have the capacity, or you're testing different things, or you have a team that can help you do this. Pick different topics, publish daily, and then from those, what resonates on these platforms that are grabbing a ton of traction, whether that's shorts, reels, or even your own podcast, right? If you already have some traffic in there, look at the first 7 days, like what resonated, and then you can go and try this out with the viral, the organic, the paid, and obviously the partnership.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna drop in here a super random thing that we don't have in our notes, but I was reading the Latino Podcast Report by the Edison Research Group, which was recommended by, our homie, John Lee Dumas.
Joan!
The Joan. And I was reading in there, yes, it is directed more towards the Latino market, but I think it's it's an indicator of the bigger spectrum, the bigger market. And one of those was asking, how do you find the podcast? And the reason, number one, the top choice with the more, votes, whatever it is, was I found a short clip of either on Shorts or Reels or TikTok, and that made them make a decision to go listen to their podcast. So keep that in mind. I think we should do an episode going through those reports. That'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, we're actually measuring this, right? Like we've seen the most amount of traction on exposure on Shorts, because Shorts they just give you a ton of opportunity there to grow. So a lot of brand awareness, but they haven't been transferring to listeners. So if you're here from Shorts, thank you. But then on Reels, they have been a little bit slower, but every single person that clicks on that link ends up listening to the episode. So if you're coming from Reels, huge shout out. Thank you so much. We appreciate you and continue to do that. So
we got 7 minutes.
We have 7 minutes. Okay. So reviews and ratings don't matter.
Don't matter.
Doesn't matter. Well,
because if you say doesn't matter, they technically matter.
Reviews and ratings. Your grammar is horrible here.
No,
don't matter for the chart. Is don't matter for the chart.
All right, whatever it is.
For charts and that. So what matters? It matters your podcast title.
You matter.
You matter. Thank you, FONZI. You matter too. The podcast title, the author name, and downloads are the most important things on this. So don't waste your time asking for reviews. I mean, it is great that people can provide feedback,
it's
obviously. But as far as like if you're using those to boost your chart standings or different things for your podcast, they don't matter. And this is coming from
I was gonna say something wait, before you say that. If you're thinking right now that is total BS, where did you hear that? I don't believe you. We heard this from the top diggity dog. Yeah, the top guy at Libsyn. His name is Rob or Ross. Rob. Wow, that sounds like I didn't pay too much attention to his name.
But yeah, the CEO of Libsyn that has been doing this for many years.
I think that's a better way to put it. The CEO of Libsyn, and
he's been debunking all this myth that's around podcasts. And I got caught by surprise because obviously when we did the contest for Continuous Profit,
Rob
when we launched,
Walsh, that's his name, Rob Walsh,
and he was kind enough to send you the presentation and everything.
He was super kind. He sent us a presentation.
By the way, I'm pretty sure that he's gonna be coming to the show, so on the lookout for that. But yeah, it was super exciting. So again, how can then you do things on your podcast to make sure that you're placing and that you're showing up in the and we can maybe dive into that. Presentation alone is massive, is so much gold. So we're going to be diving into that. But the podcast title, what are things that people are looking for, right? The author, leverage the author's name as well, just like on YouTube and on podcasts. It helps a ton, and downloads every single day.
And that is why. That's why you keep hearing, put the name of the guest on the title. Mm-hmm. Because when they search for the title, a lot of people just search, let's say Will Smith when he came out with his new book, right? People are like, Will Smith. And then all the shows that he has been, and usually when they do a book launch, they do a tour. Your show might pop in there if you interview Will Smith. And
you're going to find new audiences.
Exactly.
And then it was pretty interesting as we close this idea down is he did a breakdown of the podcast algorithm, right? And he told stories on how people would download and re-download from different platforms. But right now it's a mix of continuous downloads. And this is why it's so important we close circle with the first point that we did on frequency, right? So if you're publishing every single day, right? If you have different pieces of content out there, and we understand that maybe capacity and the topics can be a little bit of a challenge, but if you do need some help, we do have frameworks that help. That's what we do for our clients as well and different things. So reach out and we can set up a call and making sure that we can help you there. But that's why frequency is so important, because you're refreshing that feed and you're giving new information, new value, new things for your audience and do that. So,
and in terms of downloads, just so you know, is like a weighted average, which means the downloads on the first days have more importance than the later downloads, the older downloads. So day one have more weight than day two, day three, etc. So just keep that in mind. The importance of keep promoting your podcast. Try to drive new listens and new downloads as soon as you're posting, because downloads on day one are way more important than downloads on day 7 or such. So just keep that in mind. And then before we head out, we have a bonus one. A bonus.
I don't think we're gonna have.
It's gonna be quick. It's gonna be quick. We do have time. I say so. I'm the boss here today.
Okay.
So the bonus comes from Rooster Teeth, which is a media company. They're pretty big on YouTube. I'm not gonna go too deep into that, but they say podcast doesn't matter. It's about platform presence. Podcast consumption is a platform condition behavior. And I just want to tie this to relative omnipresence. you want to be not just in one place. Yeah, sure, that is, you got to be consistent and you can show up there daily, but put your stuff in other places as well. Multi-purpose your content, share it in other mediums, because some people are just conditioned to consume their content, let's say on YouTube, right? And if we didn't put anything content is profit on YouTube, guess what? We're going to be losing a lot of listeners. If we just are on Apple Podcasts, we're just, catering to a segment of the population. So just keep that in mind. And if you're asking yourself, well, how am I going to multi-purpose my content and put it everywhere? Guess what? We are here to help you out. So reach out at BIZBROS Co on Facebook, on Instagram, and we can definitely help you out. We can jump on a call, see where you're at, whether you need a fractional content team or whether, you need the frameworks, and we can, provide them to you so you can do them yourself or teach them to your team. Whatever it is, we're here to help you out. And
look at the camera and say, we're here to help you out.
We're here to help you out. I don't think that camera's recording. That's it. But whatever. We're here to help you out. Where's the camera?
It is recording. It's saying 3. Anyways, we're here to help you out, guys. Thank you so much. I think that's the episode. There's some other stuff in here, but I don't want to get into it. Maybe we talk about that on the next episode. And then with that said, thank you guys so much for tuning into the Contents Profit Podcast. Go ahead and follow the show in your favorite platform and on social media.
At BIZBROS Co. That is
let's go.
And in today's episode, to help you move one step closer towards your goal, please don't forget to share it and leave a 5-star review. But in this case, just share it to somebody and tell them to download it and listen to it. All right. See ya.
Bye, guys.